Tonari no Totoro, Totoro.
Totoro, Totoro.
Welcome to another episode of Tea and Toffees. Hello, I'm Neitshayd, an undead demon.
And hi, I'm Cecilia. I was a witch in my previous life.
So, Studio Ghibli. Or as some call it Ghibli, which sounds wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be 2 episodes, starting with some basic information about the studio, and then giving some insights into a large chunk of Studio Ghibli's films, with comparisons to original works they are based on, and small bits of analysis. I already encountered the first problem here, because I want to say the Japanese name's last name first, given name second, but Miyazaki Hayao sounds weird. It sounds weird. Like, it's Hayao Miyazaki, right?
Yes.
So what do I do?
Just live with it.
Live with it. Wow. Very good advice.
Yes, right? Very good advice.
Alright, so the first Ghibli film to be released was Laputa, Castle in the Sky, in 1986. This predates both my arrival in this world as well as Cecilia's rebirth into this world. This film is, as of this recording, 37 years old, and it is still absolutely gorgeous and very much enjoyable to watch. Truth be told, most of Ghibli films remain enjoyable to this day, no matter how old. Or rather, I'd say the older the better. Like, many films are said not to age well, but this cannot be said for Studio Ghibli's works. Technically not a Ghibli film, but often counted among them is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind from 1984. This film was made before Studio Ghibli was founded in 1985 by Hayao Miyazaki, Isao Takahata, and Toshio Suzuki. You could call it the unofficial first child. Also, how do we pronounce Nausicaa? Because it's Nausicaa in Japanese, but the way it is written, you would have to say Nausicaa with like the second A separate, which sounds weird.
Yeah. We are just gonna go with what we think, what feels more organic, you know?
Maybe a mixture, like of Nausicaa and Nausicaa, and you end up with Nausicaa.
Nausicaa?
Sounds odd. Anyway, there are, as of right now, 23 films, not counting Nausicaa, as you can see listed on the screen, because I'm not gonna go through them right now. It's just too many.
Yeah, this is a lot of anime films.
Yeah, we got like a film roughly every 2 years or so, except for, well, between when Marnie was there in 2014 and Eric and the Witch in 2020, there's a 6-year time period, because I think the studio went on hiatus or something.
Yeah, something like that, I think. Imagine if they didn't go on a hiatus, we would have even more films.
That would have been nice.
Yes.
So Hayao Miyazaki was involved as either director, screenwriter, and or producer for most of them. And if it wasn't Hayao Miyazaki, then it was Ghibli's co-founder Isao Takahata, who took over for directing and screenwriting, with the exception of 5 films. And these are Ocean Waves, The Cat Returns, Tales from Earthsea, which was directed by Goro Miyazaki, Hayao's son, When Marnie Was There, and Eric and the Witch, which was also directed by Goro. So 5 out of 23, 24 if we include Nausicaa. There are also a few more films that are associated with Studio Ghibli, either through co-production or otherwise, but they're technically not Ghibli films, so we will ignore them. All of these films have very widely varying genres. I will list these genres as we go, which is very interesting because you get everything from the studio, literally everything. I personally watched all of those 24 films. Well, not all of. I watched 23 films up to Erik and the Witch from 2020. So yeah, Nausicaa, every Ghibli film except for the latest. And UCC, I watched most of them except for the ones I told you not to bother with, I believe.
Yeah, I managed to watch a few of them multiple times because they're just good. So of course you would watch these films multiple times. Some only once, and some not at all because you told me not to bother. And now I have watched most films at least twice, and some still not at all. And Studio Ghibli really has a lot of amazing films that deserve to be rewatched multiple times over and over and over again. Films that you can watch as a family since they can be enjoyed through multiple age groups as well. And I feel like everyone who calls themselves an anime fan knows about the studio and has watched at least one film, but most likely multiple films multiple times.
I will quickly, not so quickly, list the ones we're not going to discuss in our podcast. Most of them because Cecilia has not watched them prior to preparing these episodes. I know you watched some of them when you prepared for the episode. First of all, Grave of the Fireflies from 1988, based on a short story, a tragedy film. This one is super sad, really good. Go and watch it. While it was animated by Studio Ghibli, the rights to this film belong to Shinshosha, I believe. So some people don't count it under Ghibli Productions.
So I guess that's why it's not on Netflix, and also the reason why I haven't watched it yet, because it isn't on Netflix.
Probably. I watched it. It's really sad. Next up is Only Yesterday from 1991, based on a manga of the same title, a drama film. I cannot tell you why I do not like this one, because it is actually quite a good film. But perhaps I would like to say it's the missing fantasy element, but I really enjoyed some of Ghibli's more realistic films. So it can't be that. Perhaps it's because this film is so grounded in human emotions and childhood memories, and as a demon, I can't relate to such things.
I don't remember whether I watched it or not.
I don't think so, but you should watch it.
Okay, then I will do so.
Ocean Waves from 1993. Based on a novel. It's a coming-of-age romantic drama, according to Wikipedia. This one is just a bad film.
It's mid.
It's bad.
Yeah, kind of.
My Neighbors the Yamadas from 1999. Based on a manga, this one's a comedy film. It's probably really good, but we aren't Japanese, and therefore the comedy is unfortunately lost on us.
And I never watched it.
Tales from Earthsea, 2006. Based on the book series Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, I think. It's an epic fantasy film. This film is known to have sparked some conflict between Hayao Miyazaki and his son, who worked on the film. It also got way more criticism than it deserved, I think. I won't share my thoughts on the original books. I did read them. But I can tell you that the film, while beautiful on a visual level, fails completely in its storytelling.
I haven't read the book. I think we watched the film, and I didn't understand a thing. I was very confused, but it was pretty.
That just sums it up nicely. Ponyo from 2008, a Studio Ghibli original fantasy film.
I remember hating that film. That one is not for me.
It's not a bad film, but you and I did not enjoy this one.
Probably because we were too old when it came out.
You perhaps, but you didn't watch Totoro as a child either, and I was already ancient when Totoro came out, and we both still enjoyed that one, so...
Yeah, so maybe it's just something else.
And then Eric and the Witch from 2020. Based, like House Moving Castle, on a book by Diana Wynne Jones, a fantasy film. I have not read the original book, but I did not enjoy this film. In part because it's a 3D animated film and not 2D animated, and it lost a lot of the charm Studio Ghibli is known for, in my opinion.
Yeah, 3D animation just seems wrong for Ghibli. Maybe for the better that we don't really talk about this film much. The animation does look good. It's just not a style that I particularly like.
And the plot was also... Well, I can certainly see Diana Wynne Jones' style in there, which can go into... It can go into very different directions. This one wasn't the good one. But perhaps the book is better, who knows?
I think the story is fine. There's magic. It just doesn't really feel like Ghibli in the end.
And last but not least, The Boy and the Heron, 2023. A very recent film that we have not had the chance to watch yet. Also another fantasy film. So if you pay attention, all the films that I think aren't very good films had neither Miyazaki nor Takahata involved. Not all of the 5 films that were made by others were bad, but all the ones that were bad were made by others. Well, it's just the rest are personal dislikes. But I can acknowledge that those are, like, Only Yesterday is a good film, I just don't personally like it. But it's not a bad film, so... Well, let's go into it.
Well.
Yes. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, 1984. Very old for human standards.
Yes, and I find it interesting that Studio Ghibli appears at the beginning, even though it technically isn't Studio Ghibli yet. But I can't fault them for that since we also included.
Probably got changed later. Laputa also has like the Totoro intro, but Totoro didn't come, it was released later, so. Did you know Hideaki Anno, who is known for creating Neon Genesis Evangelion, actually worked on this film? And the latest Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom, has some very heavy Nausicaä vibes when you go down into the abyss.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
So Nausicaa took inspiration from the Earthsea books that I mentioned earlier, Lord of the Rings and other works, as well as supposedly Dune. It is a post-apocalyptic fantasy film based on the manga of the same name by Hayao Miyazaki. Although, well, the manga started before the film's release, but it was only finished many years after and has significantly more content because it develops the story well beyond what the film covered. They're a bit like 2 different versions of the same story, at least as far as the film covers the story, which would be volumes 1 and 2 out of 7. I remember checking out the manga ages ago, but before preparing for this episode, I couldn't have told you much about it from memory, except for the fact that it is extremely detailed, and Nausicaa's character arc goes so much further, and there's so much more to the world that we only get a glimpse of in the film. Either way, this film is very beautiful and has a very powerful soundtrack. The animation still holds up. I mean, the resolution doesn't, but that's modern times for you, but the animation still holds up. And the message it relays is still relevant and powerful. So yeah, this film has aged very well Or one could say it hasn't aged at all.
This film is so old and yet still so beautifully animated. It's amazing.
We are in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world. 1,000 years after the apocalyptic human-made event that basically destroyed nature, humanity is struggling to survive in a world covered in poisonous forests, known as the Sea of Decay. Deadly plants and gigantic insects have taken over, and they are cleansing the earth of toxins, which this film is from 1984. Look at our world now. We might be facing a Sea of Decay world soon.
Yeah. Nature is very good at adapting, and the film sends a very nice message. It's a message that is still relevant to this day, even though this film is so very old. If we let nature just be, then it can bounce back. There are examples of that already, and it gives me hope, gives me hope. And people can really learn from this film. It's nearly 40 years old by now and still not outdated.
Yeah, about that.
The humans wrongly assume that the plants themselves are toxic, but the plants are not at fault. It's the humans that put the toxins in the earth, poisoning it. That the plants grow regardless is a miracle. One only Mother Nature is capable of. And the plants are actively helping, but through lack of knowledge, they are getting destroyed. And there are selfish humans who want to dominate nature, and there are more warm-hearted humans who coexist with the forest of decay and leave it be. Burn the forest, kill the insects, and return the world human, even though humans were responsible for this mess in the first place. So this is a prime example of humans being arrogant and self-absorbed, not learning from past mistakes.
Although this film is less about solving the Sea of Decay problem, which Nausicaä in the film learns will solve itself eventually, it's more about human conflict and violence. And it's interesting because Studio Ghibli always does this thing where there's never a truly good or truly bad side. It's always shades of grey. For example, Nausicaä actually kills people, which I love. So, about that message about nature healing itself and stuff, I didn't reread the entire manga, but I looked more closely into the final volume. And, well, so in the manga, we eventually learn how the Sea of Decay, including the Omus, actually came to be. It's actually human-made, meant to restore the Earth to an inhabitable place again, for humans. It wasn't nature itself that evolved this way to undo the damage humanity wrought with their god warriors. It was the original humans forcing nature to evolve this way. In the meantime, the humans from back then also engineered new humans that would be able to live in a world with the Sea of Decay. This means that as they are now, in Nausicaa's time, these humans would actually not be able to survive in a cleansed, pure world. The ancient humans from before the Sea of Decay stored their technology and knowledge and animals in a crypt, as well as genetically engineered humans that would then inhabit the newly cleansed world. And all of this is looked after by constructs that would awaken these new humans after a few thousand years. These new humans are genetically engineered to be pure like the world is going to be if all goes according to plan. So, yeah, why do Nausicaa's people even exist? As an experiment. They were never meant to survive forever. It's just an experiment by the old humans. Nausicaa eventually decides to destroy the crypt because humanity is not meant to control nature, and also because her people would not survive a cleansed world. Her people will die out, most likely eventually anyway, but that's just how life works. It's a very controversial decision. It's complicated.
This is life.
But all in all, the manga sends a rather different message compared to the film. Take that however you will.
Yeah, that is indeed very different, and I didn't expect that.
I would love to see an anime adaptation that covers all 7 volumes of the manga.
Mhm.
It's a wild ride.
I would be along for that.
There's a god warrior that calls Nausicaa mother. It's like I said, it's a wild ride.
Okay.
Yeah, wild ride. Let's go to Laputa, Castle in the Sky from 1986. The first official Ghibli film. This one is a fantasy adventure, also quite old by human standards, yet still holds up well today.
It's only been 2 years, and at the very beginning, I can already see that the quality in animation has already improved.
This story is a Studio Ghibli original. I actually purchased Cheetah's necklace from an independent artist on one of the cons we went to this year. Just saying. By the way, I love conventions. No one ever asks questions why I look like a walking corpse with horns. No, not the zombie kind of walking corpse, the undecayed kind. It's just, we went to 3 big conventions this year and it was awesome. So let's see. There's a castle in the sky that holds knowledge of an advanced but extinct civilization with 9 indestructible robots and a weapon of mass destruction. And everyone wants it. Either the weapon or the riches, because humans are greedy.
Yeah, or they want both, because they are very greedy.
We don't know what happened to the people who lived on Laputa, but they apparently lived in harmony with nature despite possessing that weapon and those robots. And that there were at one point several floating islands, although none were quite like Laputa. There were technological advancements that we see in the intro crashed eventually. Lots of flying islands that just crashed.
I saw the flying islands, but I think I missed the crash.
It's in the intro sequence, shown through images we're meant to interpret on our own. Guess there's no time frame for when the crash happened either, or why it happened.
I was about to ask.
There are quite a few parallels to Nausicaa in this film. Also very beautiful music.
Oh yes, very beautiful music, and I didn't really interpret Castle in the Sky as a post-apocalyptic world. Like to me, it looked more like a normal setting where you have an ancient civilization that was technologically really advanced.
Normal sounds so wrong in that context.
Do you have a better word?
Not right now.
So I'm gonna go with normal. And we've seen something like that in different media, but I'm also thinking of the Maya or Inca, for example. For their time, they built incredible structures and buildings, and they had a lot of knowledge. Knowledge that we gained in later times, and only because we rediscovered it and found out that once upon a time, people already knew all this. That these civilizations just didn't survive, having fallen victim to some event that one could call an apocalypse, maybe. A natural phenomenon, like a sudden prolonged period of drought or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Unlike Nausicaa, Laputa has some humor in it. And it isn't quite as serious in genre. It's also not as deep and catered more to a younger audience. Which is probably why the world building is lacking compared to Nausicaa. I want to know more.
You always
Give
want
me
to
more.
know more. That's your normal state. More. Give me more knowledge.
Does that mean I'm in the wrong house? Should be Ravenclaw instead of Slytherin. I need to know more. Still, it's a beautiful film, and I do actually like the atmosphere we get when Cheetah and Pazu explore the abandoned castle, find a mysterious grave and all that. A forgotten past. Sounds romantic. It is also tagged an adventure film. So there's that.
Yeah.
Different genre compared to Nausicaa. Next up, My Neighbour Totoro, 1988. A Studio Ghibli original and the poster child. Its genre is apparently fantasy. Going back to the merch, I have the necklace for Laputa and I have some fan art with Totoro and the basket for this film.
And a bag.
Oh, yes. I forgot because I use it almost daily, so it's my bag. A stark contrast to the two preceding films, this one is targeted to a very young audience and neither post-apocalyptic nor of the adventure genre. I would actually put it under slice of life. I enjoyed this one. I do greatly dislike Ponyo, but I really, really like Totoro.
Same.
Makes one wonder. Comparing music scores and art styles would be unfair considering they are 30 years apart, which leaves the plot. And Totoro feels more grounded to me than Ponyo. Ponyo is just weird, which doesn't need to be a bad thing, but for some reason it just didn't work for me. I don't know, both are meant were made for very young audiences, which neither you nor I are, Cecilia, but Totoro it's a comfort film. It makes you feel warm and fuzzy and cherished and safe and sometimes sad, if you're capable of those emotions. Like, I get impressions of these emotions and that is as good as it can get for me, but when I look at Ponyo, it just doesn't do that for me at all. I feel nothing except annoyance.
Totoro is nostalgia, childhood memories. Not that you would be able to relate much, Neitshayd. Well, not that I would be able to relate either because I didn't watch it as a child.
Yeah. Oh, well. Did you know, apparently Miyazaki wanted to make a sequel to Ponyo?
Please, no. We don't need that.
Yeah, it got scrapped for another project. I don't remember which one it was, but one of his other projects was made instead. Anyway, so there are no great stakes in Totoro. It's a quiet and cozy film about two children and their father moving to the countryside while their mother is in the hospital and there's a giant Totoro. And that's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, fluffy and cuddly and lovely.
May can admittedly be a bit much, but I suppose that's how children are. And the two sisters are quite realistic. The older is more mature because she has to be. They're both bright and love adventures and also love their mother very much. The father is doing his best. Granny is wholesome. A wholesome granny.
Yeah, and we have parents. There were no living parents in the last two films, and parents in general are very rare for anime. So,
because they always die or are absent. It's like either dead or absent because parents apparently are not present in children's lives.
Apparently, parents love to die in car crashes.
Oh, yes. Maybe the parents all get isekai'd.
Maybe. Could be. We will never know.
But yeah. While it is very grounded in reality, we have like suit sprites and whatever Totoro is and his little ones and a grinning cat bus, which grinning cat bus reminds me of Cheshire Cats.
Yes.
But like I said, it's a comfort film, slice of life.
Yeah, this film is nice in that regard. It's very peaceful. No pirates or other people coming after you. No war or fighting happening. It's just nice and peaceful, but you also have more serious stuff in there, like one of the parents being in the hospital for a long time. But it doesn't make the film feel heavy. Even if one parent is ill and in the hospital, life is still so full of color and joy and happiness and things to discover, like a Totoro.
Next up, Kiki's Delivery Service, 1989. based on the novel of the same name by Eiko Kadono. Eiko Kadono. Another fantasy film that I would put as slice of life. I did not read the novel. There are actually 6 or 7 volumes, although it appears only the first, the one the film is based on, was translated. The original novel tells a more episodic story of Kiki's deliveries with less of an overarching plot. But actually, let's add to the Ghibli merch I own. Laputa necklace, Totoro fan art and bag, and for Kiki, I have a set of figurines of Gigi and his children with a broom, a radio, and some groceries.
It's very cute.
And that's all of it. I got merch for the first 3 Ghibli films. If we don't count Grave of Fireflies, Grave of the Fireflies.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not, it's half Ghibli. Yeah, I got merch for the first 3 Ghibli films and no merch for anything else. Even though neither of those are my favorite ones, but whatever. Okay, so we got witches, we got cats, we got potions. And I love that the mom brews potions in what looks like a chem lab. It's awesome.
Yes, in good old witch fashion, the garden is full of flowers and the winter garden is full of more flowers and herbs. And combine that with chemistry and voila, that's how I would want to live a modern witch life.
It certainly looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is a growing up story. Learning to stand on your own 2 feet.
Just a nice coming of age story.
But 13 might be a magical number, but it is awfully young to go off on your own. Or, well, I suppose anime. And the times, I guess? I'm not sure. I was elsewhere at the time, so I don't know what this world was like back when the film was made. Or the novel written.
Yeah, having to move out for a year at 13 years old sounds scary. I could do without that.
At least she got a Gigi. Gigi is the voice of reason.
What a Gigi.
So like Totoro, this story is... this is a story with low stakes. More of a comfort film. Though targeted at a slightly older audience compared to Totoro. And I already mentioned this when we talked about Good Omens Season 2 last month. A story doesn't necessarily need high stakes to be good. Of course, not everyone enjoys low-stakes stories, but everyone's different in the end. Like I said, it's a slice-of-life story. Which, I think the genre is not very common outside of anime, so...
Nope, it isn't.
Yeah, very cozy, but also meaningful. A little girl sets out on her own, creates a business that she likes, starts to drown under the stress and gets depressed and eventually learns how to deal with that, with the help of the people she met along the way. Though one could argue that she loses part of herself in the process, the childhood wonder, the ability to speak with Gigi.
She loses her self-confidence and then gains it back. She settles in and is less anxious, and she is content and happy.
In the original Japanese version, Kiki does not regain her ability to talk to Gigi. In some of the dub versions, however, she apparently does, and Gigi talks back at the end. From what I heard, there are 3, I believe, different English dubs, and depending on which one you watch, the story differs quite a bit. Since I never watched any English dub for Kiki's delivery service, I can't say much more about that, though.
Weird.
Just watch the sub, people.
Yep.
Although, you would have to trust in the subtitles to be correct.
Yeah.
We will address that for Pom Poko. But next up is Porco Rosso, 1992. An adventure fantasy film based on a manga by Miyazaki. I swear half of the ones that aren't Ghibli original are based on Miyazaki's manga. I haven't read this manga, but I'd assume it's pretty similar. No, wait, actually, I might actually have read that one.
Well, I can't
Anyway.
tell you. I only know that I haven't read this
We
month.
have an air vigilante or something. He's a pilot, that's for sure. With a pig snout. In an adventure film.
I suppose pigs can fly now? So how many people have to admit to something now or do something?
Good question. Although technically Marco is still a human with a pig's head.
Yeah, I'm not really connecting with these characters. I can get behind the sense that people want to fly planes because it gives them a sense of freedom, but they gave me nothing I can empathize with. I'm not into airplanes. And then you have some pirates and police and America and guns and fighting planes and Italians. And I just don't get it. I just don't. But I guess it's also a story that tells us what's on the inside is what matters. That even if you look like a pig or have a head of a pig, which not exactly what I or most people would consider beautiful, you can have people in your life that still like you and might even fall in love with you, which that's nice.
Despite what it sounds and looks like, this film is actually better suited for mature audiences. Marco, our pig, is a man who has become disillusioned with humanity. He has lost his dear friends to the war and his old self as well, both literally and metaphorically. It's about the feeling of loss and guilt. But it's also a ridiculous adventure story and one of those films that show you how much Miyazaki loves airplanes. Moving on to a much more... Well, this film is so much more deeper than Porco Rosso. Pom Poko, from 1994. A Studio Ghibli original fantasy film. Gosh, this film is so beautiful. Sadly underrated too for, I believe, two main reasons, among others. One, Pom Poko is actually targeted at an adult audience. But most don't know that, and therefore either don't watch it or go into it with the wrong expectations.
Like me.
Two, much like my neighbors the Yamadas, this film is very much made for a Japanese audience and probably a bit harder to understand for Westerners. However, I am neither Japanese nor a Westerner, and I got enough of the references based on the research I did for personal interests in Japan and Japanese culture. So normal humans should be able to enjoy this film just as much. Like, do some basic research into tanuki and yokai mythology and then sit back and enjoy this film. It's not that hard.
You are severely underestimating how lazy humans can be.
Probably.
Yes.
This film is about raccoon dogs. Tanuki in Japanese. The dog part of the raccoon dogs is important because raccoons are not related to raccoon dogs. It's easier to differentiate in other languages, but English is rather unfortunate in that regard. And Netflix subtitles are incorrect. F's sake.
Yeah, it annoyed me so freaking much while watching.
Same. Like, gosh darn it, Netflix. You had one job. One job. Is it so hard to just put one word in there?
Apparently
they are raccoon
it is.
dogs. And, well, it's about tanuki, and these tanuki can talk, so you could say it's a talking animal film, but it's not at all like all of these childish, modern talking Western animal all of these childish, modern Western talking animal films. It is funny, yes, but it also addresses mature topics and especially economic issues. Like I said, it's targeted at an adult audience. Pom Poko has a very powerful message that holds true even 3 decades later. And there's so much mythology in this film. Just like Spirited Away, actually. I think some US Americans found the testicle thing uncomfortable, which... Talk about rather repressed culture, Shame is for the weak, people. Europe isn't as bad in that regard, although it depends on the country you're in. So, tanuki are similar to kitsune, foxes. They can shapeshift and possess humans. But kitsune are often depicted as intelligent, shrewd tricksters, sometimes with malicious intent. Tanuki, on the other hand, are not as clever, as you can see in Pom Poko, and rather than resorting to shrewdness, they just want to have fun. Their massive testicles are part of the whole shtick and can be found everywhere in Japanese folklore, even in nursery rhymes. They can be used for their shape-shifting, as weapons, as fishing nets, and much more. They are very versatile testicles. Even the title of this film, Pom Poko, is supposedly a sound the tanuki make when using their bellies like drums. So, Pom Poko has a very bittersweet, sad ending. It might be the only Ghibli film that doesn't have a happy ending. And it makes sense. The ending makes sense. A happy ending would have made you feel better, but it wouldn't have made sense in the context of the setting. Also, not a metaphor. The raccoon dogs aren't meant to represent any human groups, but they are representing themselves. Animal wildlife. Don't know how some people came to the conclusion that they are supposed to be a metaphor, because they are not. So take this film at face value. The animals are losing their natural habitats because of human over-urbanization. But there's also humanity losing part of its traditions and culture, as seen when, towards the end of the film, the tanuki transformed the city back into what it was in the past. Rural houses, fields, shrines, humans living hand in hand with nature.
That's what humans do. Constantly chipping away at nature, bit by bit. Some of the raccoon dogs actually kill a few humans, but humans constantly kill animals too. For food, because of disgust, and to protect their homes in case of mice, spiders, and insects.
But mice are cute. The house I lived in for the first half of my stay in this world got frequent mice visitors ever since the humans got a cat. My soulmate cat. She's my soulmate. She always brought us mice. Cute, adorable living ones that I had to catch and bring outside, as well as dead ones, neatly lined up with their guts next to them. She doesn't do it much these days anymore, having grown old, so...
As much as I love cats, I don't really like that part. I don't need to see dead or living mice, but I appreciate that my cat loves me.
Not that Toffee ever brings us mice, seeing that she's an indoor cat.
Yeah. In the end, the raccoon dogs just use what is at their disposal to protect their home, which is also what humans do.
No matter how silly this film seems to be, the overarching message remains a very serious one that still applies today, about 30 years later. We'll come back to this topic next episode. Last one for this episode is a double feature. Whisper of the Heart from 1995 and The Cat Returns from 2002. Whisper of the Heart is a romantic drama based on the manga of the same name by Aoi Hiiragi. This manga I actually read. If I remember correctly, the manga wasn't all that different from the film. Been a while now. The Cat Returns is a fantasy spin-off of Whisper of the Heart and could be viewed as the book Shizuku, our protagonist from Whisper of the Heart, wrote. There is no confirmation for this, but some obvious parallels to Shizuku's dreams in Whisper of the Heart and the returning characters of the Baron and the Fat Cat, Moon/Muta, heavily imply this. Also, like I said, it's literally a spin-off, so there's that. Whisper of the Heart is a romance story focused around books, music, and cats.
Books, music, and cats. Very big plus points here. Every film should have a cat.
Whisper of the Heart is a very gentle and quiet, character-driven story about growing up, following your dreams, and it is one of the few Ghibli films taking place in our world rather than a fantasy one. I think this one resonates especially with artists of all kinds.
Yes.
The protagonist goes on a journey to discover herself and her passion for reading and writing. The supporting cast is nicely fleshed out. The romance was comprehensible even for someone like me, who generally doesn't get such things. It's really sweet. Seiji, the love interest, wanted Shizuku to notice him, so he read a lot of books in the library, hoping she would recognize his name appearing again and again on the library cards. Like,
aww,
yeah.
Cute.
We also get some unrequited love between side characters and young teenage school drama, but the focus remains on finding your passion and chasing your dreams.
And I'm glad that Seiji gets to follow his dreams. And I can already see the two of them as an old married couple, having multiple cats, a wall full of books, and a room where Seiji can build his violins in.
Sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm. But proposing while they're still in high school is a bit early, if you ask me. And they haven't spent that much time together yet. Do they really love each other, and will that last?
Just let them be teenagers and love. It's not like they're actually getting married right away. I heard kids like to be dramatic like that. I figured out somehow.
I suppose.
Didn't you ever witness kids proposing to each other?
Nope. No, I didn't.
Did you live under a rock?
Kind of.
I see. Moving on, I don't have much to say about The Cat Returns. It's a little adventure story about a clumsy girl who saved two cats' lives at two different points in her life. But there are cats. Cats everywhere.
So many cats. I love it.
I would have loved to turn into a cat.
Yeah. Sometimes we envy our Toffee. Just lazing around all day, doing nothing, getting cuddles whenever she wants to.
Being terribly lonely when her mamas are away.
I don't envy that part. Poor Toffnov.
I wouldn't be lonely. I would be frustrated about not being able to flip through books because cats don't have opposable thumbs. The horror.
Yes, a horror indeed. I would just sleep and run around.
So, this film doesn't really stick out among all the gorgeous other works of Studio Ghibli. It can't compare at all to the depth of Whisper of the Heart, but it is a fun watch, especially when you imagine it to be the story that Shizuku may have written in the end.
I wish the cat that showed up at my workplace would have come back the next day. That poor white cat was so starved and needed lots of attention and love. Oh, she could have gotten some food and a trip to the vet had she come back. I hope the cat is okay and found someone else who helped her.
Reminds me of the cat our Cat Returns protagonist helped, because she was also white and tiny and starved.
Yes, that's why I remembered that and put it in my notes.
Let's imagine this cat was found and returned to a loving home.
Yes, I hope so.
So this was the first decade of Studio Ghibli, kind of ignoring the cat returns.
Yeah, and all of these films still have very much relevant messages, which, yeah, interesting. Good films.
Until next time, you can find us on Twitter, Spotify, and YouTube under Tea and Toffees.
And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a comment. How many Ghibli films have you watched as a child? And did you watch any as an adult? Also, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.